Many are claiming that you can make a great deal of money building and selling AI agents today. That's total BS. Let me tell you why. So welcome to Dave Linthicum is Not AI. I'm Dave, an AI SME and an AI skeptic, looking at AI with a balanced perspective. So the hype is pushing a lot of this. In other words, people are just agentic AI crazy out there. They think this is the second coming of enterprise technology. Everybody's moving in this direction. And we're going to be able to assemble these businesses through lots of these decoupled AI agents are able to orchestrate things and carry out certain roles and responsibilities. And if we're able to build those agents, we're able to sell them directly to people who need them. So I understand why this has, a bit of truth behind it. And I understand why people are interested and excited about this. But I think the reality is going to be much different. So first and foremost, we've seen this movie before. Microservices, containers, anything that can be standardized as a reusable component within enterprise systems has been pushed out there as something that you're able to build and sell in a marketplace. We've gone here dozens of times in the last 35 years that I've been doing this, and people have come to me with the same sort of opportunities. Most of you aren't old enough to remember that, but there was, common object request broker architectures out there, Cobra-based stuff, COM-based stuff, componentized systems that were able to plug into enterprise systems and allow them to have value or take over a part of the processing for that system. And therefore, we're building these systems out of component parts. And if we're building these systems out of component parts, then we should be able to sell those component parts. There's nothing different here. People are saying, if you're able to assemble these orchestrated businesses with many AI agents that are able to carry out certain roles and responsibilities within these businesses, why can't we be the one who produces those agents? And I'll tell you why. So keep in mind that I'm not saying that it can't be done, only that the odds are overwhelmingly against you. Also, you should not invest in a get-rich-quick scheme, including courses, books, and code frameworks that people are selling out there. And my fear is that people, have a tendency when they see these sorts of things, which has some plausible truth to it, which this does, they end up making mistakes in many cases, mistakes with many zeros on the end. And I don't want you to be part of that. And you got to remember, you're able to make money at being an agentic AI development professional, someone who can actually build and deploy AI agents. I'm not questioning that. But your ability to build these agents, which are functionally going to become products, and then sell those products into some sort of a marketplace that hasn't emerged yet, that's what I'm pushing against. So if you're looking to become a development professional, an AI agent development professional, building and deploying agentic AI systems, that's absolutely a great career projection. And I urge you to move in that direction. But if you're looking at this sort of an angle to it, where you're going to build these AI agents as a product and then sell the products, I think that's where things are going to run off the rails. So what are AI agents? Well, AI agents are software systems, simply put, that close the loop from intent to action, and the agent value is measured in completed outcomes, not clever conversations. Agents are proactive. In other words, and when you look at traditional generative AI systems, they're reactive. We enter information into a prompt, we're telling it what to do, and it's able to respond to that reaction. It's able to build text for us. It's able to build videos for us, images for us, and that's why it's such a great tool. AI agents, typically around agentic AI, are going to be proactive. In other words, we're able to set up behaviors, and they're able to look at their environment and see what's going on in their environment and react to those things, react to events occurring. For example, inventory is low. You have an agentic AI system where an AI agent is charged with figuring out how to replenish inventory. No one told it to do that. It just knows to look for a condition, in this case, when inventory falls below a certain number, to take action and carry out goals and objectives. And really, that's what agentic AI is all about. And also another neat aspect of it is these AI agents can learn as they go. So our inventory depletion agent that can restock inventory learns how to do that in better, more refined ways as it iterates through these business processes. So agentic AI is absolutely a very exciting thing, and I'm glad to see people are focused on it. However, I think there's more of an issue with people being focused on the wrong stuff, and this is an instance of that. So if the agent scope permissions and success metrics aren't explicit it's not going to be a product. It's a prototype waiting to fail in production. So these things typically, AI agents specifically, if they're going to have value for an enterprise and within an enterprise system that leverages AI, and it could be a AI agent that's working with a traditional system as well, and we have those that are working out there, it's going to have to be bespoke for the particular use case. In other words, we can't take something that has generic capabilities and push it into an enterprise system and expect great things to occur, because the agentic AI system, the AI agent, needs to understand what its purpose is, how to communicate with the enterprise system, how to communicate with other agents, what the purpose is, what the common goals are, what should be the desired outcomes. All that stuff has to be built into it. And unless you understand that, it's not going to have value. So building agents is primarily distributed systems and integration work, because the hard part is connecting to tools, data, identity, and business processes. So anybody can build an autonomous agent that's able to carry out, certain actions, generic actions. However, if you're going to have it add value to a business, it's going to have to understand what the business processes are, what the data is, what the data means, all the other systems that are in the chain, and these could be other AI agents as well, how to communicate with them in order to figure out the business value that these AI agents are going to have. So the idea is that I'm going to take a generic agent that's not going to have an understanding of what systems it's going to be placed in, buy it from, say I'm going to buy it off an AI agent marketplace, put it into production within my enterprise and have it have value in ways that people are selling it to have value. That's just not going to be the reality. So you're going to have to build these agents specifically for the use case. And so a lot of development has to occur, typically coding. Yes, I said coding. You're going to have to code to make these things happen, where you're able to put it into a productive state. And that's what people are missing right now. So the model is commonality. The differentiator is the surrounding architecture, including workflows, guardrails, evaluation, and operational controls. So this, again, is us in the technology industry oversimplifying something, which is what's really occurring here. Because, obviously AI agents in some perspective and many use cases are going to have a tremendous amount of value. People are just oversimplifying the value that it's able to bring. And so, leaving out the understanding that agents unto themselves are going to have to be created for a specific purpose and to communicate with the systems and communicate with other agents, communicate with the human beings, do everything that agents need to do to become proactive in these systems to carry out certain business processes. That doesn't mean you couldn't build a generic agent, that does, 10, 15 things very well. But in order for it to understand the business processes that it's in, that agent has to be programmed that way. So it's not going to have this, understanding. We're able to plug it into my SAP system, able to plug it into my enterprise inventory system and have it carry out certain functions. Because unless those functions are defined within the agent, they're just not going to occur in the way that we want them to occur. So sellable agents are agents that are productized, require enterprise grade, non-functional requirements, logging, auditability, access controls, rollback, cost controls, and predictable behavior under load. All these sorts of things kind of come into play. So not only does your agent need to carry out certain functions, carry out certain behaviors, and carry out certain learning events, and carry out certain objectives and goal seeking, which is what agents do, but the things have to scale. They have to provide security. They have to provide rollback capability. They have to make sure they're not basically using too many resources. Many of these agents that are running on a cloud-based system, for example, can run into many thousands of dollars a month because of their using a tremendous amount of processing power. Many of them require GPUs. Those are very expensive. And in order for them to have predictable behavior in terms of how they're going to provide, they're going to perform, you got to build them from the ground up to scale. And this is where people are simplifying this. In other words, an agent into itself, even if it's able to carry out the functions that you programmed it to carry out, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to scale. And you're going to have to build scalability within the agent. What happens if we go from, say 1,000 transactions an hour to 100,000 transactions an hour? How is it going to keep up? Is it going to fall behind? What if it does fall behind? How do I queue things up? all that kind of stuff has to be dealt with. And this is where the differences are between a concept, in this case, what an AI agent is, and how it's implemented within an enterprise system state. So there is a market, but it will favor outcome-based services over shrink-wrapped agents, since agents need ongoing tuning, monitoring, integration, upkeep, and change management. For example, if you're selling a system unto itself, like you sell a software as a service system, Salesforce.com, for instance, not knowing how they're using and deploying agents, by the way. But if you're able to make pluggable agents into those systems where you do know the environment because it's owned by you, then that's going to be something you're able to sell in the marketplace. And certainly, many software as a service systems and enterprise systems out there are selling things that are packaged as AI agents, whether they are or not, who knows. But they're doing so because they own the environments. In other words, they can certify their own stuff. They can figure out how it's going to plug into their existing technical infrastructure and how it's going to behave over time, because it becomes a product or a sub-product that they're able to sell in space. So that becomes a viable market for selling agents. Where you're not going to sell agents if you show up, some random person who's built an agent that does some things that you're going to have value, because there just is too much of a gap between what the enterprises need to understand about that agent in order to put it in production. And by the way, you could go work for a software as a service company or an enterprise software company that is selling agents that they're building in their marketplace as a closed ecosystem. That's certainly possible. That's certainly viable. But what's being promoted out there is the independent creation of agents without additional help or understanding of where they're going to be used in production, and be able to put them out on some sort of a fictional marketplace and then have them sold to people who are going to use them and be productive with them right out of the box. That's not going to happen. So if you're selling agents, or your ability to sell agents in the space, it's going to come along with a lot of consulting. You're going to need to localize those agents, show them scalability, show them the security aspect of it. And again, there's so much work that has to occur between what they need to be proven about that particular agent that you're selling in the space, that they might as well just build it themselves. And if I was advising them, that's what I would tell them. You probably are going to be better off building this thing from scratch than buying or looking for the viability of somebody else's AI agent that somebody else built, unless there's something specific, your proprietary, that no one else can replicate. But chances are that's not the case here. So that means clear boundaries, controlled tool access, measurable performance, and repeatable deployment patterns across customers, which is something you're not going to be able to find. So we have a tendency in enterprise IT to assume everybody is doing the same thing, and they're not. Architectures out there and IT infrastructure out there and IT systems that are supporting particular businesses, they're like snowflakes. They all have different data sets, they all have different processes, they all have different technologies, they all have different platforms, they all have different networking protocols that they use. All of that is unique to a particular enterprise. Unless you know everything about that enterprise, you're not going to be able to put things that are going to plug into those environments and add value. Well, anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out my other videos on this channel. Also, check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100+ LinkedIn learning courses, and of course, my generative AI architecture course out on Go Cloud Careers. And finally, my latest books, Unlocking the Power of Cloud, and An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. So until next week, you guys stay very, very safe. The magical YouTube algorithm thinks that this is another one of my videos that you should watch next. Take care.